Well, I am so excited that you offered this. It's already recording, so we can just jump in and I'll
Okay, great.
edit it. But I'm really excited that you have offered these podcast interviews because I've already been telling all of my community about you. I'm like, okay, you need to
I've
go.
been seeing Michelle. I'm like, they're putting your name in the forum of like, how did you hear about this? I'm like, Michelle's all over this.
And it's because I wish I had you in the beginning of my journey, and just knowing what a difference that would have made and how much grief that would have saved me from. I just want to save other women. So I'm like,
Yeah.
just go to Gina.
So good.
But let's dive in. Can you let the Magic Is You / Secret Owl Society community know? So bigger picture, I have a business called the Secret Owl Society, and this podcast is called The Magic Is You. I'm all about helping women take 100% responsibility for their lives. So what you do is a wonderful, it feels like you're the missing piece because I've talked about business, personal growth, but the personal finance part, I feel like I have been kind of like walking half blind. And when I found you, it just was like, I can see clearly now. So please tell the audience who you are, how you started helping women with their money, and why you care about it so much.
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Gina Knox. I'm a financial coach for business owners. And I started kind of my journey way before my business. I'd always had a penchant for money and for learning about money. My dad was very good with money and he taught me a lot, and I like kind of forced him to. I was like the one always asking questions. I remember in high school, I'm going to date myself. I was in high school when the Great Recession happened. I like remember being in class and my teachers being like, Lehman Brothers just crashed. And I'm like, what's that? Like, I didn't even know what was happening. But I remember going home and asking my dad, like, what is the economy? Like, everyone's talking about the economy. And I'm like, what? But what is that? Like, that just seems like this amorphous idea. So those are the kinds of questions I would always be asking. Then I ended up going to art school. I have a bachelor's of fine arts in interaction design. So think of like UX design. I was in the tech world. And my first big girl job out of college was I was a small business researcher for QuickBooks. So for 5 years, my whole job was to just interview small business owners across the country and the world and basically be like, how do you deal with your money? Show me how you do the sales taxes. Show me how you figure out your profitability. Like, just, I was learning all about how business owners did business money tasks. And then I was taking that information and translating it and then giving it to our engineering and design teams, because our entire, like, we're all high paid W-2 salary tech workers. We have no idea what it's like to be a business. So that was my whole job. And then I started coaching some friends on the side, because a lot of my friends had questions about, how do I deal with my 401k through work, or the stock options? How are they taxed again? And like, I just knew the answers. So I started coaching all my friends. And then I built the business and I was like, I think I should work with business owners because I have all this knowledge for the last 5 years. So that's how we got here.
I love it. And I was just thinking about how you said you went to your dad and was like, what is the economy?
Yeah.
I feel like I've been going around to different people in my life asking, what is the stock market? What is this? I hear people say, you need to do it and you need to start early. And then I hear other people say, don't do it, you're gambling your money. And so I was just kind of tiptoeing around investing. And always had this deep-rooted belief that this is something I need to understand. But because I kept coming up against these walls or just bad advice or bad experiences, I just kind of set myself down in that area and was just like, just build a business, just make money, invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And so when I came across you, it was a breath of fresh air, because not only do you understand investing, but you're speaking to women in a way that it's like, we need to understand this now. We need to dial this in. We need to get started. And it's different than just learning personal finance in general, because I feel like I would go try to learn personal finance and it's just didn't really help me get anywhere or do anything. It was just, okay, I read a little bit, let me get back to work. But you're very like, let's get this done yesterday.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it.
Yes.
And my husband and I, so I signed up to your program, and my husband and I have been, we live in Porto and we walk the kids to school. And so we have this whole routine where we get up, get the kids ready for school, walk to school. He does a little power walk and I walk home, do a little cleanup. And then we sit down and we watch several courses, especially yours. And we've been doing it one lesson at a time. And we always have the longest conversations after we watch one of your lessons, because then we're like, okay, we need to talk about how this just made us come to a whole new level of realization around our money and what we wish we did and what we need to do. So we're always talking about you, but can you?
First of all, I love that you guys are doing that together,
Mhm.
because especially in a marriage, you do have to reconcile two people and two people's different money mindsets and ideas and desires and goals. And so doing it together is so powerful. So
Mhm.
I just love that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, the last lesson of yours that we watched, where you were talking about broken money beliefs, or just something about like one of the pieces in there was the belief of, yeah, but that's for other people.
Yeah.
We talked about that, and for him, he definitely had that belief of, no, being rich is for other people, because he grew up a poor Mexican, all that immigrant story, and he just felt like that was always someone else's life.
Like destiny. Yeah.
Yeah. So even though I have this life that I've created where we have a successful business, we have all of these options, this great lifestyle, I could see that he's always been mentally kind of stuck in that childhood
Yeah.
mindset. So just
Yeah.
having these conversations is so powerful. So he was talking about that. And then I saw, like, I never thought that wealth is for other people, because I've grown up around wealthy people and learning about personal growth, but also at the same time experiencing the opposite of the spectrum and just a lot of poverty and
Mhm.
a lot of poor mindset and broke mindset. And so just wading my way through that, I've always known that wealth is something I can create, but I never internalized that wealth is something I can keep. And
Mm.
so what you helped me do was go from this mindset of, oh, I just make money, to this mindset of I make money.
Right.
And that was huge. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think that's so fascinating, because with business, right, there is the opportunity to build and build fast, even, and like double your revenue and hit these big, amazing goals and have that wealth in the form of cash flow, right? Like I'm making a lot of money every month. But that hinges on you continuing to do that, right? Like, okay, you have to keep making money every month in order to keep the wealth. And although that is true in the context of business, when it comes to having your money make money for you, it really has nothing to do with your labor anymore. And it's going to sound, for people who are not exposed to investing, this is going to sound fake. Like I've legitimately had clients who are like, what's the gotcha? This feels fake. So I'm going to just preface this, but you literally put money in an account, you invest it, and then it grows. And
Mhm.
that's literally it. But there's so much mindset. There's so much like, what is the gotcha? This doesn't feel safe, da, 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 all this stuff. I don't know how this works, that keeps us from doing that. And it's a shame, because it's literally as simple as put the money in the account, invest it, don't touch it again, and it'll grow.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I was angry when I found out how simple it was. It's like, why the heck did it take 20 years for me to figure this out? And it was always this simple.
Yeah.
And
So many people do, by the way. So many people come into my programs and they're like, there is a grief period of
yeah.
like, oh man, I wish I started this earlier. Like I actually have a lot of clients who will go through their first round of seven figure wealth, the mastermind, And they'll come at the end and they'll be like, I feel like I didn't get as much done as I wanted to because I was just like dealing with all the emotions. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's actually really normal that like the first time you're confronted with this knowledge, there's not only the how do I do it and the strategy questions, but actually more of it is the grief of, I wish I would have known this earlier. Why did nobody teach me?
Mm,
Why does this feel still scary for me? All of that. And I think that it's really important to recognize that, like, that might have had to be your journey all along, right? Like, there's nothing wrong if you have to go through processing your emotions in addition to implementing the strategy. But that's why I think coaching is so powerful because, like, any finance book can tell you invest in an index fund. It's
mhm.
not that complicated, but it's all the humanness
Yeah.
that we have to sift through and process and deal with. Because if we don't deal with it, it could come back and sabotage our wealth later. I've
Mhm.
seen this happen where people like panic sell or they like make this big mistake because they literally because their emotions are driving their money decisions. And we really want to have you come in and build a strong portfolio, a strong financial strategy, but also a strong emotional management strategy because
Mhm.
they go hand in hand.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like I've been getting advice from people who either didn't invest in the stock market, so it's kind of like crabs in a bucket. Like I didn't do it, so I don't want you to do it. I want to feel good about the fact that I didn't do it, or people who
Mhm.
did do it and then they sold because they got scared, and then they want to turn that into a story about how they lost all their money. And so
Right.
it took me a long time to find what is the non BS explanation here.
Yeah.
And so I went on that journey of just stopping the whole build the business, got to do this, got to do that, and just give myself a month of immersing myself in financial literacy.
Mhm.
And so that's where the clearest answer I got came from the FIRE community.
Yeah.
And so that's where I learned, oh, it's about investing in the stock market, in index funds, and letting that get to a point where you don't have to work,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of other messaging around FIRE where it's you're super frugal and you don't have a life and da 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 da. But
Not me.
it's just about being aware that this option of growing your money is an option, whether
Yeah.
you do that in a business or you do that slowly or you do that fast. But when I realized that, I was like, I wish I had known that, even
Yeah.
though I know that I can take everything that I've learned from going the long way around and turn that into, I'm glad
Mhm.
we can always look back and say, my worst day was actually the best day of my life because of blah, blah, blah. So I know I've already been able to pull lessons out and help other people just from having the experience of wishing I learned sooner. But it really was a grief period where I just had to really feel all the emotions and look at the ways that I had let that my financial traumas create blind spots. Like, why didn't
Yeah.
I push through sooner? And just feel all of that. And then finding your program, it felt like I had made progress and knew what to do. But coming across you, we were on the live call together, one-on-one call together when I was asking you like, is this the right program for me? And I said, I feel like I needed you 5 years ago, and now I'm doing the things I need to do. And you told me, yes, you look like you're on track, but we can get more sophisticated.
Yeah.
That spoke to me. So can you talk about how you help people get more sophisticated with building a wealth portfolio?
Absolutely. Um, so what a lot of people do, which is like a good foundation, right? A good foundation is if you have a retirement account of some sort, right? Whichever country you live in, they all have different accounts. If you're self-employed in the US versus a employee, they're different accounts. But if you have a retirement account and you're putting money in and that money is on track to grow to seven figures or beyond by the time you're 65, and maybe you have paid off your debt, right? Maybe you have your cash savings, right? So you have like the big three. I have some investments. I have debt paid off. I have cash. That's great. Gold star. Congratulations. You're doing better than like 90% of the entire population. And you can just keep doing that for the next however long, right? However old you are up until 65, you can just keep doing that. There's nothing wrong with that route whatsoever. But what business owners have is the opportunity to make more money. And with that more money that we make, we can get more sophisticated with not only just like speeding up our retirement age, you don't have to wait until you're 65, but also like getting creative with what your portfolio can do for your life. Because I think that the predominant advice that we get, personal finance advice that we get is, be on track for retirement, right?
Yeah.
Or retire early. And those are cool, but like, I don't know about you. I don't necessarily want to retire early. Like, I can, but I don't necessarily want to. So, what else can my portfolio be doing for me? I
Mhm.
have used my portfolio to buy me a house. I've then sold that house and put the portfolio right back to where it was as if nothing ever happened. I've used my portfolio to like buy me things that I just desire. Like I've
Mhm.
literally used my portfolio. All the personal finance bros, their heads are going to explode. I've used my portfolio to buy jewelry because
Mhm.
I wanted to and
Mhm.
because I could. And
Mhm.
because doing that didn't actually have any material impact on my finances or my goals.
Mhm.
I'm going to be using my portfolio to set my kid up for life. Like, and it's so cheap because my kid is so young. I have clients who are using their portfolios to create legacy plans for the communities and the charities that they're very passionate about in a way that's incredibly tax advantaged.
Mhm.
So you're being able to set up your legacy, but you're also getting a huge, like absurd tax deduction in the years that you're doing it. I have clients who are using their portfolios to travel. I have clients who are using their portfolios to take a year off and have a baby or just take a year off and have fun. Like we can get more sophisticated with how we think about it, but also how we set up our portfolios to not only support our retirement goals, which is, like I said, good, gold star, amazing, but like what's after that?
Mhm.
I had a client who she she came to me and she was like, what's the next financial move I need to make? Right? She had real estate. She has her retirement on track. She has a taxable brokerage that's nice and full. She has low expenses. She has no debt. Like she's like gold star, gold star, gold star, gold star. And she goes, what's the next financial move I need to make? What's the right decision? And I told her, I was like, you need to figure out what you want in your life because you have one life to live,
Mhm.
and at the end it's over according to whatever belief system you have. At the end of this life, at least this life is over. And she goes, that's what I've been avoiding. And I'm like, yeah, your financial strategy can support any lifestyle you want, but you also have to know what that is. So I
Mhm.
think that there's like this balance of like we can get more sophisticated, but we also need to know, what do you want to be sophisticated for?
Mhm. So what I discovered, and it gave so much more clarity and context to my business to know, oh, it's not just about build a successful business. Like that was the beginning and the end of the story of everything I've ever heard. And I've taken that and turned it into something that really was serving me by saying to myself, I'm building this successful business, but it's a tool for my personal growth. Like I'm going to make this how I grow and heal and evolve as a person. And that totally came true. But I realized there's something even bigger than that, which is the business needs to be in service of freedom.
Yeah.
And I realized building a successful business doesn't necessarily equal freedom automatically.
No, sometimes it just equals another job that you bought yourself
Yeah, it just
or made
equals
for yourself.
exactly because you have to keep working. And my whole paradigm shifted when I realized, oh, this is about making work optional.
Yeah.
Because I can say I love my business, I'll do it till the day I die. But now I realize I want to have my business be in a place where I don't care how much money it makes
Yeah.
because I've been able to build a wealth portfolio outside of the
Yeah.
business. And yeah.
There's something so beautiful too that happens, and I have definitely felt this where I'm not fully work optional in the sense of like, at least for my lifestyle. I don't want to be frugal. I'm not a frugal person. I don't ever plan on being frugal. So with my current expenses, I could not retire. If I were to go full frugal, I could retire, but I don't want to do that. But I say that to say like there is a world where I could stop working. But either way, my business doesn't have to be nearly as big as it is.
Mhm.
I could cut my business down to like a tenth of what it is right now and still survive and be happy. But what happens when you build wealth outside of your business is that then the business gets to be fun, and
Yeah.
the goal for the business is not solely more money.
Mhm.
My goal for my business has so much more to do with the legacy that I want to build and leave and the work that I'm actually passionate about. And this is the work that I'm very passionate about. And so for me, growing my business is in service of the legacy I'm building, but it's so freeing to know I could cut this whole thing down and nothing bad would happen to me or my family.
Mhm.
Nothing. It's almost this like renewed sense of the honeymoon period in our business in the beginning, right? When it's
Mhm.
like so exciting. I feel like that the majority of the time because I have wealth outside of the business that is not contingent on me continuing to work. It's
Mhm.
so good. So
Mhm.
good.
So how long did it take you to go from realizing that this is the framework to, oh, I'm practically living this now?
Okay. I started my journey learning about the FIRE movement. So financial independence, retire early, very much like you. And this was when I was in my 20s. So about 24 years old. And I went hard. I went full frugal. I went like track every penny I'm spending in YNAB, like budget queen. I went so hard because at the time I was an employee. And as an employee, you only can earn as much as you earn.
Mhm.
And yes, you can get a promotion or a bonus, but those are like not going to happen whenever you want them to happen. They're happening, on a schedule determined by the company. And I was a well-paid employee, I should say. But I started with just like upping my contributions to my retirement accounts through my employer. And it was slow. My first 100K took years. It was excruciating. I hated it. It took years. And I think it took so long also because I was an employee. There's only a certain amount of money you can put aside when you're only making a certain amount of money every month. So that took a very long time. Then I hit 100K and then I hit 200K within like a couple years. Then I hit 300K within like 8 months. Then I hit 400K within like 6 months. Because here's the thing that happens, it starts snowballing. It
Mhm.
starts growing faster than you're contributing. So
Mhm.
that journey started when I was 24. I would say here's the fascinating journey. There's this concept called Coast Fi. Are you familiar with this concept?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll explain it to our listeners. Coast Fi is where you have a critical mass of money in your retirement accounts, where if you stopped contributing any more money and you just let it sit until you're 65 years old, that money will grow over the decades it's sitting to the dollar amount you need to retire by the time you're 65. So I hit that number and I felt like, oh, just this like weight lifted of like, I could fuck it all up. I don't know if I can swear. Sorry. I can mess it all up. I could lose my job, but like that retirement money is going to be there for me when I need it when I'm 65.
Yeah.
And what that safety really gave me was the freedom to take a risk and quit my job.
Mhm.
So I had started my business 2 years prior, 2.5 years prior. I had been working full time and working on my business at the same time. And when I hit that Coast-Fi number, I was like, I'm going to quit my job. I don't have to contribute to retirement for a while or ever again. And I'm still going to be good. That risk did take a while. Like it took a while for me to start earning more than I was earning in my corporate job. But now I'm earning so much more than I was ever going to earn in my corporate job, even as like a director or a VP, which I was never going to do that. um, and now that has enabled a whole new wave of growth all over again because I'm funneling my profits into my portfolio. And so now I'm 31, right? So this is less than 10 years. I will say the growth has, in hindsight, it's gone very fast. It's all happened very fast. In the trenches of it, it felt so slow. So I
Mhm.
say that to say a warning, do not give up before 100K because that is like that critical mass where it starts getting easier after that, but you
Mhm.
kind of got to trudge through it to get there. And I will say also like it's harder, in my opinion, it's harder for employees than it is for entrepreneurs because we can make more money. So you have the ability to like, I'm going to go out and make this 100K to put in the portfolio this year if I want to. Now, it may or may not happen, right? Because of market conditions or whatever. But I do think that business owners have this beautiful opportunity that employees are never going to have. And so
Mhm.
that's why I'm passionate about working with entrepreneurs because even though we have that opportunity, most entrepreneurs don't use it.
Yeah, we bring the employee mindset into entrepreneurship and just recreate the whole paradigm. And
Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, I did a video with one of my joint venture partners, and we weren't even planning to do the video. We just came on Zoom to have a conversation and we decided to press record. And what we were talking about was how do we build a sabbatical based business? And I don't think I even heard about that anywhere. I just kind of, the heavens gave me that idea. Like, what
Mhm.
would it look like to have a business where it thrives because you take a break and it doesn't suffer because you take a break? And so I
Mhm.
feel like I've had that in the back of my mind for years, trying to solve for that equation. And what you have laid out is exactly that. It is how you are able to use your business to create a um, safety, but also incredible growth to where you get to this point of being work optional. And those two words to me are like heaven, like work optional, not
Mhm.
retire early, not hustle and frugality your way to a certain number. It's just what would it look like to make work optional, whether we do that fast or slow? We're not trying to retire. We just want to be able to have more freedom. And what kind of business can I create from that place? You would probably make even more money.
I think too, the beautiful thing about work optional is it doesn't have to be forever to the point of like retire early is definitive. It's like, I am planning to never work another day in my life. So I have to be fully confident that my portfolio is big enough to sustain me for the rest of my life. Work
Mhm,
optional is so much more open ended. Like at my current spend level, my portfolio would last me 13 and a half years.
mhm.
That's not forever. I probably won't die in the next 13 and a half years, knock on wood. But I'm like, wow, if my kid got sick and needed a year in the hospital, God forbid, I would be able to do that.
Mhm,
If we wanted to travel the world for a year and I closed my business for a year, we would be able to do that. Like there's just so much freedom and space. And it's not like I have to retire forever, but it's like I get to just choose what is best for me and my family given the current circumstances. And the beauty of that is like we never know what circumstances are coming for us. So that
mhm,
freedom is really like I just have all the options at my fingertips that I
mhm.
need.
Yeah, you really helped me see that when we did the call, because I have been trying to learn from the fire people, because that's the only place I could go to get information around creating freedom. But yes, it's all through this filter of have this huge multi-million dollar number in the bank so that you never have to work again. And it does need to be more broad and
It's like black or white in the fire community. It's like I'm retired or I'm not.
Mhm.
And I just think that doesn't work for business owners because typically we love what we do. So we're not like trying to strive to like get me out of this business. Maybe some people are, but I think the majority of people I work with are quite passionate about what they do. So that paradigm doesn't really fit very well.
Yeah. So when I met you, it just helped me translate this into what feels good for me. And when you showed me, hey, if you just keep doing what you're doing, these are the if this then that scenarios that are possible. And just you showing me how to think in terms of if this then that, like if we keep putting this amount into our investments and in 5 years decide to take a year off, then how long would that money last if we were to pull out this much per month? Oh, it would last 10 years. Okay, we can take a year off.
Yeah.
Like that work optional definition is really what I needed. That's the definition of work optional. It doesn't mean you're retired. It just means that you can take these mini sabbaticals. You can take a maternity leave. You can, like, you have more options.
Yeah.
Without it hurting your savings or your investments or your life or your, so it was just a big mindset shift. And I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. I want to speak on too, if it's okay, the riskiness of it, like the people saying like it's like gambling.
Mm-hmm.
I think the way I explain it, I like it at least for business owners. When you're investing in the stock market, what are stocks? Stocks are just portions of companies. That's it. So what you're doing is you're buying little portions of companies. And the reason that people say it's like gambling is if I put $100,000 into Zoom, let's say, okay, cool. Zoom is a great company right now, but maybe Zoom is going to become obsolete. Like when I started my career, blue jeans was the Zoom. And nobody uses blue jeans anymore. First of all, that's a terrible name. But if I put $100,000 into blue jeans, my $100,000, either if blue jeans went out of business, it could be worth $0. Or if they've just declined significantly, maybe my 100,000 turns into 30,000. That's relatively risky. But if I put my $100,000 into 3,000 companies across the United States, what's the likelihood that all 3,000 are going to go bankrupt? Very little. What's the likelihood that even the majority of them will go bankrupt? Still very little. But what you have to think about is just like your business and my business income is inconsistent. Every month we make different amounts of money. So do big corporations. Every quarter we make a different amount of money. Some years are great years and some years are bad years. But in the long run, we want to start investing in businesses when businesses are smaller. So as they grow, our equity portion is worth more money. But that's why you see also such high variation in the stock market, because any day I can log in and I see a different dollar amount because I have to think about it as like, yeah, because every day in business is different. But what people do, going back to the emotions, is they see, oh, their dollar amount in their account looks much lower. They panic, they sell. And that's when you lock in your loss. Whereas if you had just held on, it will pop back up again if your investment strategy is not all in one company that's failing, right? But I really do like to think of it that way. It's like I'm just investing in businesses, and businesses are variable, just like my business is variable. Just because they had a bad quarter or a bad year doesn't mean the business is done for or can't grow again in the future. Man, I wish I invested in Disney in 1942 when I was not even born. And I'm sure that over the last century, Disney has had its good years and its bad years. COVID was a really rough year for Disney. They had to close all their parks. But does that mean that Disney is a bad company to invest in, or that I should have sold my stock when it was down? Absolutely not. So that's really the mentality. People who tell you it's like gambling just fundamentally don't have a strong understanding of a way that you can make a strategy not so risky.
Yeah, it was the Simple Path to Wealth book by J.L. Collins that just showed me, oh, it's about investing in the entire stock market. And yes, there'll be ups and downs, but it trends upward and you just leave it.
Just leave it.
And I heard or read somewhere that, I think it was in the Boggleheads book, that the people who make the most money in the stock market are dead people.
Are dead. Yes. This is a study from Fidelity, which is a very big brokerage firm. They were like, they have access to all this data. So they asked themselves, the data analysts, what account holders are performing the best? What can we learn about their investment strategy? Blah, 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 blah. So they did this huge data study and they found out the best performing accounts are, I don't know if it was dead, but they were inactive, as in somebody hadn't logged into that account for like over 5 years. And maybe they were dead, but they were definitely just not logging in. And I'm like, don't touch your shit.
Yeah.
Don't touch it. And I will say too, though, going back to our sophisticated strategy, like I very much have that mentality with my retirement investments, but my taxable brokerage, I use it all the time.
I want to learn how to use mine all the time.
There's nuance. There's nuance in here. It's not like don't touch all your stuff forever, but we definitely want to leave, at least I want to leave my retirement so that I know 65-year-old Gina, she's a rich granny and we're going to let her be.
Oh, I love it. Well, can you tell us more about how you have turned all of this knowledge into programs or your podcast? Like what do you do to help women do this for themselves?
Do you want to know this, like my offers, or do you want to know my journey to making my offers?
I would love to know both. Can we
Okay.
hear both?
I'll tell you the offers and then I'll tell you the journey. So currently I have 2 offers. I have Small Business Money School, which is a 12-month group program for business owners, and it's all about your business finances. So if your business finances feel a mess and you're listening to this podcast and you're like, I can't even talk about retirement. I don't even I'm in debt and I'm not paying myself and it's all burning. Small Business Money School is for you. What we do is we help you implement a cash flow strategy, an expense strategy, a tax strategy so that your house is clean and stable, because it's very hard for business owners to build wealth if the business is a hot mess. So that's what we do. It's a 12-month program, $2,500 or 5 payments of $500. Then we have 7-Figure Wealth, which is a 6-month mastermind. That's the one that you're in. In 7-Figure Wealth, we focus on building wealth outside of your business. So how can we do all the things that we've talked about today? I will say there's kind of like 2 types of people in 7-Figure Wealth. There's the person who has the business that's like clean and it's flowing, and now we're using their owner's pay to build wealth. We also have the person who like came into a windfall, even if their business is like a baby business or they're a side hustler, or maybe their business isn't cleaned up, but they have this divorce settlement, or they just sold their house and they have this big chunk of change they don't know what to do with. They have this like external lump sum that they're confused about. We work with those people as well. And really, we're trying to get everybody to work optional, right? Like what we've been talking about. My journey to these 2 offers was, I would say it's like, actually, it's not that complicated. I started with one-on-one coaching. And I was just coaching business owners on anything they brought me, right? One-on-one coaching, what I love about it is it's so open-ended. So I was coaching on investments. I was coaching on taxes. I was coaching on cash flow. I was coaching on owner's pay. I was coaching on debt. I was just coaching tons of people for like 2-3 years on whatever they brought me. And through my one-on-one coaching, and this is why I think one-on-one coaching first is so valuable for coaches who are building a coaching business. I created my concepts, my frameworks, my points of view, and I got to test those in real time with my clients one-on-one to see if they worked or not. That ultimately is what built my curriculum for both offers, is that testing ground. And I got paid well to do that. I helped my clients a lot, but it was really invaluable in building my curriculum. So Small Business Money School came first. It was originally called 6-Figure Saver. We recently changed that this summer. So if you've ever heard of 6-Figure Saver, it's now Small Business Money School. I could talk about the name change if you want, but it started way back in the day as a group program for women in tech who wanted to save 100K. I kind of like put that on pause, did one-on-one coaching intensively, and then came back and like refined 6-Figure Saver at the time. This year, we really just realized that name didn't match the content anymore. So we needed to change the name. And then 7-Figure Wealth started as 7-Figure Retirement for one round before we changed it to 7-Figure Wealth, because I realized it was just so much bigger than retirement. And that really came as just this natural progression of like, okay, what do we do once business owners' finances are cleaned up? Like, they have to move on. Like, we got to
Yeah,
get to the wealth building.
yeah.
And I was realizing like, it didn't really matter how many books I sent them to or how many like accounts I told them to follow. They just weren't doing it. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll make the program myself. I'll make the program myself. And that program's a bit younger. So we started in August of 2022 as Seven Figure Retirement. We rebranded it in 2023. So it's like two years old now, I guess.
Mhm.
Six Figure Saver started in 2020.
Mm.
A baby program before I kind of paused it and did one-on-one and then came back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was that person where I had a business. It was making money. I went from client work in 2020. I stopped client work and went full time into selling digital courses. And I did
Mhm.
lots of one on one coaching and group coaching, and very quickly passed seven figures. But I didn't know what to do with the money. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what I didn't know. And I just felt this deep angst, like, I want to be smarter with this. I don't like, and I just, looking back, I was trying to look for ways to invest it. And I have invested it in different things in that time period, but
Mhm.
nothing aggressively, nothing with clarity. And I invested a lot back into the business, and I probably overspent on things because I was just like, well, where else is the money going to go? I'd rather it just go back into the business than just sit in a bank account.
Right. A
So,
lot of people do that.
yeah. So it's like, I am just totally aware that you do get to a point in your business where you need to move on to this step, where it's like the wealth building step, the
Yeah.
let's be smart with the money your business is making step. But also, you don't need to wait until you have a successful business to start doing these steps. Can you talk about that? Because I know people are probably watching this and thinking, okay, yeah, but I'm still trying to make money in my business.
Yeah. You'll always be trying to make money in your business.
Yeah.
What's
So
the
do you
question?
have anything for people who are like, I'll wait till I'm rich, then I'll invest?
Well, and I think that this is the absolute shame, and this is a huge thought error. I want you to think about like cash flow and making money in your business and solving business problems and paying off business debt and paying taxes on time. These are monthly, if not annual problems. Every month, you're going to be facing these things. Every month, you're going to have to be saving for taxes. Every month, you're going to have to be paying off debt. Every month, you're going to be trying to make more money. That doesn't have an end date. So, what exactly are you waiting for? Because that's not going to be like, oh, done, I'm done,
Mhm,
like ever at
mhm,
any income level. In fact, as your income grows, it gets more intense.
mhm,
And so, what happens is people wait, they wait until they hit this point of realization like, I think I've been waiting too long.
mhm,
And that's where when we do get those clients into seven figure wealth, that's where the grief comes from.
mhm,
The oh my god, what was I waiting for? I missed out on potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars of market gains because of waiting. This
mhm.
year, so we're recording this in October 2024. This year, the market has had 42 record highs.
Oof.
If you had started investing in January, you would have been the beneficiary of every single one of those.
Mhm,
And I would have rather had $2,000 invested in January, hit all 42 of those record highs versus waiting till December to invest $5,000.
mhm.
You see what I mean? So,
Yeah.
so that's first the thought error. The second thing I will say is if you don't have a windfall or a big chunk of money in your personal finances to deal with, and your business isn't paying you, or like every month you're just like I pulled $300 out for groceries. Okay, rent is due. I pulled some money. If you're doing that, then yes, let's start with money school. Let's wait until we clean up some of your systems and start paying you. But if you're earning an regular wage from your business, congratulations. It is now time to start wealth building. No matter what other fires are happening in your business, because the fires will always be there.
Mhm,
Always, always, always. So that's kind of how I think about it. I used to have a $10,000 savings like threshold for seven-figure wealth, but I realized that wasn't working quite. That wasn't quite it either, because there are people who have savings who are using their savings and burning through it. And that's another problem we have to solve, right? Or there's people who don't have savings, but they have high monthly cash flow that I wasn't accounting for. So it really is like, if you have a big chunk of money, we got to start investing it, or like deciding what to do with it. Or if you're earning a regular wage from your business, even if it's just enough to cover the bills, it's still time to start.
Mhm.
Because time in the stock market is more valuable than anything you can ever buy.
Mhm.
I have seven-figure earners in seven-figure wealth who are earning, $15,000 a month plus, who are having to contribute so much more money into their portfolios just to get the same balance than if we had started when they were 100K businesses. If I
Mhm.
had started with them when they were 100K businesses, they would have like $500,000 in the market by now, but we are now rebuilding that step by step. Their high income isn't necessarily helping them in the way they thought.
Mhm.
So I highly caution you to like start as soon as you can. And that is usually much sooner than you think.
Mhm. And I think that there's value in just getting started, even if it's like, I don't know what the minimum amount would be, but even just doing something to demystify it was
Yeah.
huge for me. Like realizing it is this simple, and it was a switch in the identity as well, because I went from, oh, I'm no longer playing this role of Michelle makes money. Now I get to be the Michelle makes money make money
Yeah.
role. And
Yeah.
it just takes one little step, and realizing that it is a little step made a huge difference. After we did that, we just went boom, just aggressively invested whatever we could without sacrificing our lifestyle since January. And I was just talking about this with a friend of mine, and I was looking at how much it made in gains. And it's like enough to cover like I call it interest, but it's not interest, it's technically gains, right?
It's gains.
So it's like, and she was like, wow, that's like a whole month of business income that
Yeah.
just happened without you doing anything other than putting the money in here instead of there.
My
Um,
portfolio has made over $100,000 of gains this year.
I'm shooting for that. That was
I'm
amazing
like
you
I'm
said
like over here like an annual salary.
that.
And I only have that now because I started when I was like an employee making only a certain amount of money, only able to contribute a couple $100 a month.
Yeah. Hmm.
But those contributions are fueling my growth now.
Hmm. Okay, well, Gina, I know I can't keep you all day,
We
but
could talk about this all day though.
can we close off with the 3 top things that you want the women on this call to know? Like, these are women who probably have a business, probably have a lot of beliefs about why they can't invest right now,
Mhm.
but have the same angst, nagging feeling that I had, which is there's something I don't know, there's something I need to do, and like just kind of like break through that wall. What are 3 things that you would want them to know?
Okay, this is good. If you have that feeling, there's something I don't know. I don't want you to make that mean that you are disqualified. Not knowing is not a disqualifier. That doesn't mean wealth is not for you. It doesn't mean this is never in your future. Don't confuse those two things. When it comes to wealth building, it's like learning a new language. You probably don't know something, but it's actually very easy to learn. It's it's overwhelming because it's especially if you like Google how to invest in the stock market, it's like drinking from a fire hose, but there are ways to slowly build your financial literacy, and one day you're going to wake up and be like, I just know all this new knowledge now. This is for me. So that's number 1. Number 2, I hound this on every single podcast I'm a guest on. Inconsistent income is normal in business, and it's never, ever, ever going away.
Mhm.
Ever. Every business makes a different amount of money every month. I have a different amount of money coming into my bank account every month. You have a different amount of money coming into your bank account every month. And I say that to say, I hear a lot of people like who will apply and they'll be like, I don't know if I'm ready for this because my income is still inconsistent. And I'm like, congratulations, it will always be. There's no level. Like I remember thinking when I hit 100K, then I'll have consistent income. Girl, no,
It's just
no.
more inconsistent, more dramatic.
I'm working on $1 million a year this year. It's more inconsistent than ever, way more inconsistent than ever. So don't let inconsistent income stop you. That's not going away. And I say that to say too, like, don't shame yourself for having inconsistent income. I see a lot of people do that where they're like, they feel bad, like they're missing something. You're not missing anything. It's just normal. Now, there's a difference between inconsistent income and like, I don't know how to consistently sell. That's a problem that we probably want to solve. But even if you know how to consistently sell, your income will always be inconsistent. So that's number 2. Number 3, do not pedestalize pedestalize the debt payoff. Debt payoff is not the most important thing. I see this a lot, especially in minority groups, women of color, immigrants, my immigrant family's background. There's this sense of like never owe anyone anything, pay off your debt as quickly as possible. And I think that like the biggest thing that I want to say is you can build wealth while in debt. I have debt and I've built a lot of wealth, but you can't build wealth by only paying off debt. Paying off debt gets you to 0. Building wealth gets you to big numbers where it starts passively growing for you, even if you still have debt. And that doesn't mean that we never want to pay off debt. We do eventually. I would also say there's a huge difference between business debt and personal debt. Businesses spend money to make money. Every single business I've ever seen, and I've worked with over 700 companies, has used debt at one point or another because it's a business tool. Personal debt, there may be a lot of reasons why you're in personal debt, and we may want to pay those off faster potentially, but don't bring personal finance mentality into your business, specifically when it comes to debt. They are very, very different. So if you have debt, I don't want you to disqualify yourself and say, I have to wait until I pay off my debt, because it kind of goes back to the cash flow thing. Like, yeah, I'm going to hold your hand when I say this. You might always have debt in your business. A lot, like, because we're always growing and investing and doing new things. And so if you wait until you're debt free, you might wait too long. And then you've missed out on the 42 record highs that we've had this year, on the crazy growth that we've had. The S&P has grown like 36% this year. That's insane growth. And paying off your debt, it's like, I mean, even if we look at just the interest rates, right? Like your 20% interest rate on your credit card is still less than the gains that we made in the market this year. It's just math. So don't pedestalize debt. Inconsistent income is normal. And what was the first one I said?
Don't make something mean something.
Don't make the fact that you don't understand even what we've said on this podcast mean it's not for you.
I'm glad you talked about the debt. I almost wanted to bring that up because I've hosted something I call the Abundance Adventure, and I've been talking about everything I've learned that we've talked about here. And a couple of people are like, yeah, but I'm waiting to pay off debt first. And I'm like, well, there's different opinions on that. And so I'm glad you explained, because when you talked about it in your webinar, I was like, this is the first time I'm hearing somebody talk about it like this. So thank you so much.
It really does. My thoughts about debt really come down to math. And when you remove the emotion, we can do the math. But when you're emotionally charged, you're like tunnel visioned on the debt and you're missing opportunities, I guarantee you.
And extremely wealthy people have tons of debt.
Listen, wealthy people, I grew up in wealthy circles. Wealthy people don't even use the word debt. They use the word leverage.
Yeah.
And it's a normal tool for building wealth. I always say debt is the number one wealth building tool in America. You just don't know how to use it right.
Yeah.
And it's because no one's taught you. And this kind of goes back to my comment about like minority groups and women of color. Like, I actually think that there's a double standard for how we talk about debt in white wealthy groups versus minority groups. I think we tell minorities, pay off your debt, focus on that. Don't look over here. Don't look over here. You focus on your debt. Get to zero. Go ahead. And meanwhile, over here in the wealthy groups, they're like talking about leveraging the debt. They're talking about building wealth. They're talking about investing in income generating assets. And it's not that it's like, I mean, historically, this information has been politically and like legislatively gate kept. At this point, it's not, but the system still exists. The gatekeeping system still exists. And it's not that like you're not allowed in the club. It's just that you have been excluded and you've been told one thing while the other group is doing something else. And that's really crappy. And we don't need to do that anymore.
Not to mention healing the generational trauma and the financial trauma.
So it's all part of it. And that's why I think, excuse me, that's why I think like the coaching relationship is so important versus just the information relationship, because we have to talk about all of this. We have to talk about the fact that like your family's house was foreclosed on, and that's why you're so afraid of because it's driving your behaviors. And listen, like I said, anyone can read a book. But this is the stuff that keeps people stuck, and it keeps people repeating the same generational patterns.
I want to tell one quick story and then I'll let you go. But it just made me think about how my financial trauma created such a blind spot. So even though I had the desire to be smart with money, and I would see the chart about Susie started at 20 and Billy started at 30, I was like, how do I start? And I was reading a book that I've had for a while, and it's Personal Finance. And I was rereading it, having done all of this financial awakening work. And I saw in the book, I had written down the note, invest in Vanguard. And I have no recollection of ever reading that, let alone giving myself the to-do. So it's like, until I healed the financial trauma, it was like the information couldn't get through. I could see it, I could hear it, but it didn't translate into, okay, we're doing this.
Right.
So what you said about it's not just information, it's coaching. Because until you start to unravel those blind spots, it doesn't matter what you're being told technically, because emotionally, you're just finding new ways to be confused or forgetful. So,
and I think it is a self-preservation technique. Like if you have any financial trauma in your family and you've grown up with those stories, or you've seen that trauma firsthand with your guardians in your childhood, I mean, you don't want to repeat that same pattern of mistake or risk. And so your body could easily be just, like you said, shutting information out of like, no, we can't do that. And it's that inner child saying like, don't put us in that position. We don't want to go back there. And I think that's so normal. It's like that little inner baby is crying for help, and you do want to protect that. And so it's understandable why we do these things. You don't have to blame yourself. You don't have to feel guilty about any of it, but we just have to process it. That's really all it is. And oftentimes, we don't even know these gaps because we're so close. We can't see it. We're too close.
We're in the bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Gina, please let everyone know how to find you, how to work with you, what you have, and we will close after that.
So you can find me everywhere at Gina Knox, on Instagram at Gina Knox. My website is www.ginaknox.co. I would say the best place to get to know me is my podcast, Small Business, Big Money. I have not hundreds, like in the hundreds of episodes now. And I just dive so deep into all of the different topics. So if you're like, I want to work with Gina one day, but I don't have the money to start listening to the podcast. We do different themes. We talk about different stuff. So you can listen to that where all the podcasts are found.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Gina. Thank you for existing. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm going to keep shouting you from the rooftops, keep sending women your way. And thank you so much for coming on the Magic is You podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. This was so fun.
All right. Bye.